Hello, good morning and a very warm welcome to you. I'm Rachel for Kalkine TV, reporting to you live from Sydney. You're watching the Global Markets Roundup show. Let us dive into some key highlights and happenings from yesterday, starting with the US market. Global equity markets rose and the US dollar slipped on Wednesday, with investors a little more optimistic a day after the House of Representatives passed the $3.5 trillion budget framework, and a top health official expressed confidence in fighting COVID-19. On Tuesday, the Democratic-controlled House voted to advance the framework, which is key to President Biden's agenda. Investor confidence in the economic outlook also got a boost when top US infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci said that COVID-19 could be under control by early next year. All major US stock markets closed higher on Wednesday, that's August the 26th, pulled up by gains in technology and the financial sectors. The blue chip S&P 500 and tech-heavy NASDAQ composite closed at record highs for the third consecutive day, buoyed by a positive economic outlook. The S&P 500 was up 0.22%, the Dow Jones rose 0.11%, the NASDAQ gained 0.15%, and the small-cap Russell 2000 was up 0.37%. Investors were eagerly waiting for the Fed meeting on Thursday at Jackson Hole in Wyoming, which is likely to make some key decisions on the economy. Economists expect the central bank to reveal plans for tapering monetary stimuli later this year. The session assumes significance for the market as the Fed may signal changes in interest rates. Let us now take a glance at some important updates from the market. In yesterday's session, financial and energy stocks led the gains on the S&P 500. The economy-linked industrial sector also saw significant traction, giving a boost to the index. 9 of 11 sectors of the index stayed in the green, but healthcare stocks withdrew. Retailer Dick's Sporting Goods stock jumped 13.59% in intraday trading after reporting strong quarterly results. Its net sales surged 20.7% year-on-year to $3.27 billion. In addition, the firm has raised its full-year earnings forecast to around $11 to $11.45 per share. Fashion retailer Express Inc.'s net sales rose by 86% year-on-year to $458 million. Its net income was $10.6 million, or 15 cents per diluted share. However, the stock fell 10.81%. Moving on to futures and commodities now. Gold futures were down 0.91%. Silver decreased by 1.5%, while copper rose 0.13%. Brent oil futures increased by 0.8%, and WTI crude was up 0.73%. Looking at the bond market, the 30-year Treasury bond yields was up 2.63%, while the 10-year bond yields rose 4.58%. The US dollar futures index decreased by 0.07%. Moving on, European stocks ended unchanged on Wednesday as losses in Italian utilities outweighed gains in travel and bank stocks, while global markets were range-bound ahead of a policy update from the US Federal Reserve this week. The region-wide Stoxx 600 index closed largely unchanged after a record close on Wall Street. The European benchmark itself was just less than 1% away from its peak. Now it's time for a very small break, but stay tuned. I'll be back with some more trending market updates.
Hi there, James Preston for Kalkine TV. Are you into gaming and virtual reality? Does AI and the endless possibilities it entails capture your interest? Or are you constantly trawling through the web to try and discover the latest updates and innovations in the tech space? Well, let us do the work for you. From the latest product launches to shocking affairs on the World Wide Web, exclusive interviews and information about the top companies like Apple and Google to brand new tech startups vying for your attention. Kalkine's Tech Beat has the latest in what matters in the world of technology. Join me every single Thursday on the Tech Beat, exclusive to Kalkine TV.
Welcome back. I'm Rachel and you're watching the Global Markets Roundup show. The London markets traded in a green zone supported by healthcare and consumer stocks. Building material distributor Grafton Group shares went up by around 3.97% after the company reported record interim profits and subsequently reinstated the dividend payments boosted by the Woodies business in Ireland. The FTSE 250 listed gambling company the Rank Group shares rose by around 3.24% after it stated that Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs would not appeal regarding VAT paid on slot machine income in the period from April 2006 to January 2013. Eurozone borrowing costs rose sharply on Wednesday, with German and Italian yields logging their biggest daily rises in 6 months as investors dumped bonds before a crucial speech by Fed boss Jerome Powell at the Jackson Hole summit. The selling took 10-year German yields 6 basis points higher to 0.42% by close of trade, the highest in a month. It was the biggest daily jump since February, when reflation bets were selling bond yields spiking. Japan's Nikkei stock average erased early gains to end lower on Wednesday as investors turned cautious ahead of US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's remarks later this week, offsetting a rebound in Toyota Motor and other related stocks. The Nikkei share average edged down 0.03% to close, while the broader topics inched up 0.08%. China shares finished higher on Wednesday after China's central bank boosted short-term funding to ease worries over tightening liquidity amid a faltering recovery. But losses in financial, tech and real estate sectors capped gains. At the close, the Shanghai Composite Index was up 0.74%. South Korean shares ended higher on Wednesday, though gains were capped as investors refrained from placing big bets ahead of the Bank of Korea's policy meeting and a key speech by US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell this week. The Kospi closed up 0.27%, rallying for a third straight session. The index rose 1.56% on Tuesday in its sharpest daily gain in more than 3 months. Now let's take a closer look at the market at home. On Wednesday, the ASX 200 closed 0.4% higher. Meanwhile, dairy giant, the A2 Milk Company, reported a 79% profit fall in financial year 2021 due to sluggish demand from China. The revenue was down 30.3%. Market sentiment also improved after top US health official Dr. Anthony Fauci said that coronavirus could be under control by early 2022. On Friday, US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is expected to talk about tapering the Federal Reserve's bond buying program at the Jackson Hole Symposium. Crude oil prices surged over 1% on Wednesday after US government's data revealed that fuel demand reached its highest level since the pandemic started. The major energy stocks such as Woodside Petroleum and Santos could trade higher on Thursday. The prices of gold fell more than 1% as investors eyed the Jackson Hole Symposium. Spot gold fell 0.6%. and gold futures settled down 1%. Gold miners, including Northern Star Resources and Newcrest Mining, could trade lower today. Meanwhile, benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange was down 0.1%. Well, that's all from me for now. Keep watching Kalkine TV for more market updates. I'm Rachel, signing off for now.